Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast. This is where you go to learn how to use pure motive service to create higher value to grow your results. And now, here is your host, America's service sales coach, Joe Crisara.
Welcome to the Service MVP Podcast, and my name is Joe Crisara, America's service sales coach. And today we have a very special show with a new friend of mine. Her name is Ryan Bowman from Catalytic Consulting. Ryan, say hi to the group here, the people who are listening.
Hey, everybody. Good morning or afternoon. I know we're right on that line, but good Monday anyway, everybody.
Well, I had a really great conversation with Ryan at one of the most recent industry events, and we had talked. I just thought we were going to have a small conversation. It turned into about 45 minutes. We started talking about some of the commonalities we both believe in, and I figured that's we have a lot in common, the things we believe in. So I thought we'd bring on Ryan so we'd share it with her voice, and she could tell you a little bit about herself. But the name of this podcast is called The Catalytic Effect on Your Business. And Ryan is going to go ahead and tell us how we can create multiples of success with some of the information that she has. So Ryan, welcome here. And why don't we just start by introducing yourself and who you are and how you got to be in this position.
All right. I'm Ryan Bowman, Texas local. Closest city that anyone will recognize is probably Houston. Been here my whole life. I am a venture capital, private equity survivor of many, many years. Serial C-suite, I won't say prisoner, associate, affiliate for years and years and years. And,
okay.
I like to joke and call it when everyone says, "Oh, how did you get into this? How did you get into consulting?" And what I say professionally and what I say among friends are really different. So the combined version of that is an organic transition into consulting. After several years in the space, I just realized I had something unique to offer and wanted to find a way to spread that out as much as possible. What I mean by that, if we meet somewhere over food and drinks, is that I was pissing people off in those traditional W-2 roles where you're expected to do one thing over and over and over. You're expected to deliver on a very key point, and then you have an idea or you have an opportunity for improvement. And when you're in the trenches in a role that's very clearly defined and you're like, "Hey, I have an idea about how we completely turn this thing upside down and add a bunch of extra work to it," it didn't go over so well, right? So I sat down. You go ahead.
Can I just say something? Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of got my ear when I said you should be on my podcast was that even though you were originally with some private equity firms and you came to this business from that point of view, you started talking about how people are more important than things, which is something I truly believe, is that even though there's a bunch of buzz phrase out there, which we will explore some of these on our podcast here today, that really it comes down to the effect that some of these decisions and some of these processes have on people. And I think that's something I want to make sure that people get across from you, is that you are a disruptor, but you're a disruptor to sort of like the normal buzzwords that the venture capitalists and people like that throw around as to how they value your business and things like that. And you kind of stunned me by saying that the business is valued by much more than just numbers. There's a bunch of other things that go into it, and in the heart of the business, which is really the people. So that's one thing I did want to add in there that I caught my ear as I recall that conversation we had, which made me feel like you should be on this podcast. So thank you for being here, and thanks for introducing yourself too. And that's what I'm just going to go add that on there, because I know I'm not sure if you remembered that conversation like I did, but was that accurate? Am I just make sure I'm on the same page you're on so far?
Oh, you're super accurate. I'm careful with that one because that's one where I'm most passionate. So as long as you started the conversation, that's
yeah. Well, I liked it because it was like, you're not a disruptor to the contractor, you're a disruptor to the private equity people that, hey, when you're looking at this, you got to look at more than just the data. There's more here that shows value beside the data, right? Why don't we start by talking about, since you kind of look at the big picture, everybody's got their blueprint, and I have some, I think, my building blocks or my highway to success, if you will. I always say there's a few exit ramps to get back on. Tell us about sort of like the way you overview a business and some of the things that you look at to kind of see the business from a different perspective than maybe the owner or somebody who's willing to invest in it would see. How do you see businesses? And tell us about the game plan or the roadmap or the blueprint, however you want to put it. What do you look at? What's your way of your metaphor for that, if you
Oh
will?
man. So everyone, I don't say everyone, but the common phrases are, oh, it's just business, right? You can't take it personal. Like you can't get emotional about it. And I'm going to tell you right now, for the majority of my career, I was working really hard to believe those things, to not take it personally, to not get emotional. I'm like, it's just business. And eventually I decided that I just reject it, right? I cannot accept that. It is very, very personal. It is very, very emotional. And I've been so bold as to say it's never just business. Like people who say, oh, it's just business, or people who have gotten really crummy making, light out of the personal emotional things, who are just making a quick decision and are just getting comfortable not thinking about the implications, about that ripple effect. So I really challenge and just fiercely reject the idea that it's ever like just business. There's no universe where you will ever make me believe that, because at a certain level, and especially in service at all, if you're more than one human being, no family, no nothing, if you're more than one person alone, every decision you make has an effect that affects people somewhere at some point. And I believe in my heart, I've seen it over and over and over. When you detach from that and it becomes strictly transactional, oh, if don't take it personal, it's just business. It's over. You've already lost. It is never just business, ever.
Yeah, because business is here to affect the lives of people. I mean, business is a people business. It's not just every business is a people business. We have people who are employed there, people who are being served by the business, vendors who are people who are supplying goods to us and services to our business. And so if we say it's just business, in a way, we're kind of creating that cold streak inside of us, or that kind of turning ourselves into a sociopath of
I
business in a way. Does that make sense? Is that some of what you've seen? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, to me, it feels very detached and very arrogant. And taking it a step further, it's not even just about the vendors. It's not even about relationships in your actual business. You have your own family to consider and the implications of that. Every vendor has a family and implications of that. So I've seen it over and over where we're not going to discuss this yet. We're not going to do this yet. We're not going to plan for this. We're not going to build this yet. Up here in this little area, in this little ivory tower, this little bubble, we're going to make all these huge decisions. We're going to pretend that they don't affect everyone else and and then roll them out whenever we're ready. And then one other part of that is we are just going to assume that everyone around us that has supported us to this point isn't going to notice that we're talking about things that they're not involved in. And that could get me spun off on a whole nother tangent about just crushing your company culture when you're doing, the secret thing. Like this isn't planning a surprise party. When you get suspicious about, like I said, a surprise birthday party, it's fun, excitement. But when you feel the energy shifting and the culture shifting in the place that supports your entire family and your entire life, it's atomic. It's horrible, the effect that can have. And I think denying that and hiding behind that, it's just business, it's just crushing. I picture like a junkyard where they're just squishing the cars and moving them over. I think to deny that exists and that it's very real is absolutely insane.
Well, it kind of brings up an obvious question then. And we didn't rehearse for this part, so I'm going to go ahead and throw some of the curveball at you here. What is the balance then between obviously the business is here. One of the things I say sometimes is like, imagine your business was here to make a profit. Sometimes there is that part of it, and there's also the people part of it, which is something that is needed. The engine, I always say, either you're an engine or you're an anchor when you're some of the people in the business, or the people who affect the business are either propelling it toward a profitable enterprise, which helps us serve our communities better, or sometimes those people are anchors in the business. Sometimes we have that too. And you probably, I think I've heard some stories about you coming in and noticing some dysfunction with people. And people can be a catalyst, like you mentioned in your name of your business, or sometimes people can be a dead weight that can also hold back the team. How do you balance and how do you identify that situation like that in your business? How do you find that out?
So I think, and this is good, I love this so much because this is something early on in this venture for me and kind of early on in these bold statements of mine that I had to really think. So I hate the part where I actually have to make the money, right? When I actually have to tell people that I have to get paid a little, right? Like I don't love that part. So it's good for me to try to, this is a great question. So in my opinion, balancing the transactional side and the person side, the catalyst for me is authenticity, honesty, and transparency. So really education from that emotional and personal standpoint. Here's the thing, bad news, weird news, new information, period, really any news, this isn't wine. All right. You're not going to lock it in some weird dark closet and it's going to get better. It bring that stuff out, talk about it, address it. It's going to happen. You're going to bring this stuff forward and you're going to have conversations. Maybe every single person isn't responsive. Maybe every single person's not in alignment. But I think hiding it and not discussing it and just waiting for the right time is a bad move. I think there's so much power in being honest and being transparent and educating, like helping the people understand why. Why is this happening? And I've seen it change the game over and over, right? So in one place where you feel like you're protecting and you're guarding, these people have supported this mission up until this point, right? Like give them all the information they need to know to help you get to the next one. Will you lose a couple along the way? Sometimes, usually not. I think what's going to stink worse, what's going to cause a bigger ripple, what's going to break things apart. I was with a company for 15 years and I left because of this very thing. Because one day you show up to work, there's all new people, you got a new brand, and all of a sudden you're shuffled like livestock to a company where culturally you don't align at all. So in addition to having to make that operational adjustment, who are these people? Why? And then why didn't you tell me anything? We didn't know, right? And so it's less about, well, I didn't know, you didn't tell me, and more about, we've supported you until this far. Why don't you trust me to help to the next level, right? And I just think those conversations have to be had for a successful anything, whether it's private equity or growth or a restructure. Be open.
I agree. That's amazing. One of the things I wonder at this. So I've identified sometimes with being from your background that there's 3 different types of businesses. Some people building it to keep it as a legacy business. Sometimes people build it, but they need help financially, and they get the investors to. They still want to run it, but they need some investment and guidance from the investors too to grow it. And then there's other people who are want to get investors to basically buy the business and exit the thing. Do you help all 3 of those types of people? And tell us, can you comment on any one of those that you're more familiar with, or familiar with all of those? Tell us about the different avatars, if you will, like that.
I'm familiar with all 3, and I'm very careful about how I get involved. And I paint the picture, kind of make the analogy playfully, like in the cartoons where you have the devil and angel on your shoulder, right? 100% of the time, I'm the angel on the shoulder because I've referred to these huge partnerships at, you're dancing with the devil. You can get where you need to go without that happening. And then there are some variables there, right? Like really, really understanding the exit strategy or the reason for the exit is important. There could be a guy who's been doing it for X amount of years. He is just over it. He's ready to sell out and disappear.
Yeah.
I get it, sort of. There's a time and a place for those mergers. But again, unless you're one guy, there's other things to consider before you make that partnership. And so I think the short answer is yes. I help all of those people. To an extent, even when trying to remain neutral, I tend to be very anti-private equity. I think, going not to go to Disney on you, anything you can do, I can do better. So I always really encourage a couple of things. And one of those is after you understand exactly why you want to do it, let's dig in and make sure that's still a good idea, because I can tell you, it's been my experience so far, 100% of the time, it's not going to be what you think it is.
Well, I noticed that you also say when I first met you, you were involved with House Call Pro, helping a lot of contractors there. So let's just be firm. You're here on behalf of contractors. Definitely, I see that. Everybody clear is clear on that part of it there. And working with the people on House Call Pro, especially who are a lot of smaller contractors who are getting their feet under them. Are you platform neutral, or is that the platform that right now you're helping most of the contractors with on that part of it there?
I am platform neutral, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm like platform savant, if that makes sense. There's not
Okay.
one that I haven't got completely figured out. It's a blessing and a curse.
Hmm.
I know systems like nobody's business. So operationally, we've been really able to like twist some arms of some softwares, manipulate some tech stacks to just juice exactly what that contractor, what that company needs out of all of their technology to kind of work
Hmm.
together. So that is one
Hmm.
of the major strengths of Catalyst is that integrations and implementations piece to make sure you're getting everything out of it. Do I have favorites? Yeah. I can't say what my favorites are. You
You don't
haven't
have
already
to.
you haven't already mentioned what conference where we met, so I don't think I'm
Uh,
showing my cards. But as a computer nerd, naturally, I do have a couple favorites. But at the end of the day, the goal is whatever you're using where you are in your season to maximize that. Make sure you're getting the absolute most of every dollar you're spending. So if you're using House Call Pro, if you're using Jobber, if you're using a freaking Excel spreadsheet or Service Titan, whatever it is that you're using right there in the
mhm.
moment, make the most of that so that you're getting everything you can possibly get out of what you're already invested in. And then when you're ready, I say it all the time. All right, see you at the next level. The idea is to polish it, let go, and you maximize what you've already got. I'm not pressuring anyone on anything new at all.
No. I think a lot of times contractors become too much of a slave to the technology, and are like, oh, we can't do that because our software doesn't do it. I'm like, dude, you need to start doing it whether the software does it or not. There's certain things that need to be done. If the software doesn't do it, if you have to do it manually, it's better than not doing some things at all. Like I was like, we do a thing where we create the pricing a certain way. It's like, oh yeah, I don't have the flat rate book for that. I said, let's just make a flat rate book really quickly here to get started, so you can. It's not going to be perfect, but at least it's get away. We can get this thing started here. I'm not sure about how you feel, but I feel like the universe rewards people who take action rather than people who wait for other people to get started with something. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. So do something versus doing nothing. And I am very much an advocate for asking forgiveness versus asking permission. Um, Probably ties back into that organic
Mm-hmm.
transition
Mm-hmm.
to being a
Yeah, it
solo.
probably does. Yeah.
I believe waiting on something to do something for you, it's never going to happen. Do something, make a move, make a change. The smaller that gap is between need and execution, the better things get for you. Be fast. When you have an idea, just do it, send it, get it done, do something, act on it. And dialing it back a little bit to what you said earlier, it's just kind of a language barrier. So I'll often call myself a translator too. These
Mm-hmm.
guys in the field have a completely different skill set. Before coming to HVAC, I worked in commercial and residential construction. So you
Mm-hmm.
meet a group of guys that have these crazy valuable skills. However, they speak a different language. When I come to them and ask them about logging this report or going on here or checking in on something on an app or some report, they don't give a crap about what computer thing I'm asking them to do, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the amount of things that they have to do administratively to get the same exact result that the administrators need as well, because both pieces are very, very important. That has to work for both people. So it's really easy to sit in the office and be working on something and be pissed off because you can't see exactly what you want to see. And it's easy
Mm-hmm.
at that time to just like, well, this is what we need. This is the new rule. We're rolling this out into the field. Well, when these guys are on a roof and it's 110 degrees and 130-degree attic, the bottom of a hole in freezing water, the last thing they care about is what they have to do on the computer for your app. So bridging that gap in communications, minimizing the amount of things that they have to touch that's kind of outside their wheelhouse to get the same result is so critically important. And it has to be a support mission. And that also ties back into explaining why. Educate.
I get it. A lot of times we talked about different metaphors like the highway, the roadmap, the blueprint. You mentioned a volcano. Would you like to go ahead and give us a little bit of your sample of what that metaphor does continue there for your business plan using the volcano metaphor?
Yeah, so and you and I talked about this a little bit too casually, and you called it something probably a little bit less nerdy, like bricks. And
Mm-hmm.
but so I think of Catalyst and kind of what we do and what we bring to the table as like a science project volcano, right? You know what I'm talking about, where
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
add.
yeah.
So imagine you've built this volcano. It looks great. You've invested all of the time. You've invested all of the money. You've invested all of the resources, the clay, the paint, everything.
Mm-hmm.
You get to your classroom, you set it all up, everything's packed up just right. The last thing you do for the huge eruption, the big show, the results, the goal, the end result, what you're being judged on, the catalyst. You pour it
Mm-hmm.
in, and that causes the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Without that one thing that ties the entire project together, it does nothing. It just sets
Mm.
there. And you stand in front of people having wasted days of your time, energy, effort,
Mm.
money,
Mm-hmm.
resources, and you're in front of people like, ta-da, look what we can do. We can't do it. We didn't, but we can, right? So you're fumbling at that point, having invested all of this stuff, but it's not reacting, it's not sparking, it's not erupting.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that one little missing piece is executing on all the things you have, the time you've spent, the resources, the bricks. So when we spoke, you said bricks and the mortar. We bring the mortar that puts it all together. And that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
great sense. You can have ideas all day long. And it's not uncommon that these companies were founded by by a visionary, an entrepreneur that says, let's do it. But how do you tie it all together? And that's sometimes a different language, a different person.
Sorry, are you saying that Catalyst Consulting is like I call it the small big in my world. It's a small thing that we can add to the volcano that kind of creates action. And if you're trying to get that customer service team to use the caller ID part of a program, or get your service team to activate the pricing part of the program, or whatever you're trying to do, you're good at getting in there to speak to the team to get them to take action on whatever initiative that the company needs right now at this point. Is that a fair way of putting what you do with companies?
Absolutely. We're really, really, really great at breaking down those disconnects, demonstrating, educating, and just lighting that one little spark. And it begins to connect everything across the board, almost like dominoes. You hit the first one and off it goes. And that is 100% what we do. And it's like it's hard within a company where everyone already has a job. When you're heading to that next level, your company's already firing. Everybody's got a job to do. Everyone's doing a really good job. So who do you pull from where to start dialing into those little areas? That's not always something every company has, is a person that they can dedicate to that. So
Can you tell me a short story about something you have wandered across? And you don't have to mention any names or anything like that, but give us a short story about something that you did wander onto a team, and you started seeing some obvious dysfunction, and you brought everything to the right order, and used your catalytic effect to make changes. Can you give us a little short story on that, if you don't mind? Is it
oh
possible?
man, I'm trying to think of a good one. Actually, yes. So I'm working with a company now, approximately 25 locations. And we uncovered through a series of what the heck is this? Because another one of our business models, we have 5 core rules. One of them is, annoyingly inquisitive. Always ask questions, keep asking questions, keep asking
Mm-hmm.
questions. So through a series of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And digging in to really understand why, we uncovered just small gaps where what they were spending wasn't necessarily lining up with the receipts.
Mm-hmm.
It just snowballs. I call it making pearls, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
once upon a time, it's a tiny little grain of sand. That was not a big deal. When you were 1 or 2 locations, you don't really notice it. But left unattended, it just grows and it gets shiny and shiny and
Mm-hmm.
shiny and huge and expensive. And next thing you know, you crack the company open and there's a huge expensive pearl. And what the heck do you do? How do you go backwards from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we uncovered a situation where at 1 or 2 locations, they're like, we'll address that when we have to. And so here you are nationwide, and we're undoing that at this point on something that was like, $1 or $2 here and there per
I get
transaction
it.
has gotten
It
out
was
of
like
control.
it was one time a small problem, but now it's turned into a big one.
Oh,
And
very
and now you have to kind of you got to break down the pearl, back to
Oh
the
man, what are you
sand,
doing with it now?
sweep
Because you
it
can't
out.
ignore it. It's big and
You got to remove the pearl.
Once it was just uncomfortable and a little bitty piece of sand, it would have been easy to address it kind of at the start.
Yeah.
Attention to those little annoying things before you scale is, oh my goodness, it's going to save you a fortune, not just in the money that you'll spend along the way, but in corrective action, right?
Well, I do know that what's in your heart is to help people. What's the best way that you can help people? Unfortunately, I always say a good podcast starts on time, but a great one ends on time. So we're just about there with this one. What can people do to get a hold of you, to be able to contact you, to be a catalyst? If people are stuck and they seem like they can't move forward, sometimes you have a husband and wife business or a family business where things just seem like there's nobody who can bring this thing to order, and you don't know who to call. Ryan, I'd say break glass and call Ryan Bowman, and she can take a look at everything and try to break down some of those sands before they become a big pearl that we have to, it's an expensive problem. Ryan, how do people get a hold of you, and what can they do to be able to get a hold of you to learn more about your services?
There's a couple of different ways to reach out on our website, whatever's easier, which is catalyticeffects.com, or my email is ryan@catalyticeffects. Reach out direct. If you're on Facebook, if you're on social media, any way you can think to reach out to me, I will answer you as fast as I can, right? So and again, in challenging those blueprints, nobody's situation, nobody's question looks the same. So to say, this is how you get in touch with me and this is what we're going to do, there's no way I could even do it.
Yeah.
So the short answer is whatever you need, find me. The answer is yes. We're going to find a way to get you where you want to go. And that's guaranteed. Whatever it is you need, we're going to make it happen. We're going to figure out a way to make it work.
It's catalyticeffect.com.
Effects.
Yeah. Yes. Catalyticeffects.com. Ryan, get a hold of her and she'll be able to help break any log jams you've got there, or dysfunctions that you suspect you have. She'll help identify those dysfunctions and help you work your way through them in a customized, personalized way. Sounds like she's saying she'll do, right?
Yes, sir. Very personal. It's never just business.
Any final words you want to say to the audience before you leave?
Oh man, I would say if you're vetting financial partners, just call me first. Call me or text me first, right? There's a little bit of a therapeutic angle, right? Like talk through it with someone who's seen it from the other side. And another little piece is to not forget that you're doing this for the first time. This is a huge transaction. This is the life-changing, quote, transaction for you. These people have done this over and over and over and over, right? So the approach is obviously naturally a little bit different from both sides. So just as an advocate and a friend and a peer in the space, before you exit, if you're even considering exit, call me. I'll get on a plane and meet you where you are just to buy you brunch, right? Like let me help you identify why you're headed there. And then if you change my mind, I'll leave you alone forever. But
thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you being here. And thanks everybody for being here. Hey, don't forget to like this podcast and to share it with your friends on other social media channels. We'll be back again next week with another podcast. Thank you, Ryan. Have a great one, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
We make you the MVP.